Hey everybody, I'm back again with another review. This is the Bay Area's only toy reviewer, Carl, and I'm here today to review DC Superpower Power Girl. This is my favorite female DC character. Before Wonder Woman, before Supergirl, before any of that, this was my girl right here. And contrary to what you might think, it's not because of her ginormous breast. I liked her because she was just super cool. Like in her limited comic book run, I forget which year, but it was fairly recent. Her character was just a cool character. Her comic book was light and it was fun, and there was a lot of action. It wasn't so dark and so heavy. She wasn't a strong female character. She was just a strong character. Some people might debate that. I think that she was just an interesting character. Her philosophy was always like punch first and then ask questions later. And I always thought that was kind of an interesting approach to like a hero. And she always did the right thing, but it didn't always go exactly the way she planned. She wasn't perfect, despite the fact that, you know, she is Kryptonian. I don't know what's going on in the comic books right now. They could have retconned that. I don't know. But I know that as of this incarnation of her, she is Kryptonian. She is Superman's cousin from an alternate dimension. She really became prevalent in my mind in a comic book arc called Infinite Crisis. And that's when they really took her and put her to the forefront and really made her noticeable. Excuse me. Supergirl's one of those characters, Power Girl. It's one of those characters that's always been around. She's been around for years. I think she's been around since the 80s. Even maybe further back than that. But I didn't really become what's the word I'm looking for? As prevalent to who she is until much later on, when I start reading older Justice League stories. Her origin story has changed a few times. I don't know what it is currently. But that aside, she has all of the same superpowers as most Kryptonians do. Super strength, flight, super speed, things like that. Occasionally, she can shoot heat vision from her eyes, Arctic breath, things like that. I don't know if she can do like the sunburst. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, is when they use all of their solar energy and expel a blast. A powerful blast. A beach blast. Anyway, with my videos, okay, because I want to get this out of the way right now. With my videos, I want to start doing things like giving some context to the characters. Maybe not so much on storyline things, because comics change like every 3 months, and origin stories and reboots are constantly in flux, and comic book stories don't last as long as they used to back when I was reading comics. Dating myself. I do apologize for clearing my throat a lot. There's just something in my throat. Jeez. But back when I was reading comic books, you know, there were certain storylines and characters that carried on for like 10, 20 years of the same storyline, maybe minor tweaks, but now it's just, well, that reboot didn't work. Let's try again. Well, that reboot didn't work. Let's try again in 3 months. So they're rebooting the same character. You know, the same character's been getting like 10, 15 reboots in a 6-month span, and now nobody can keep it straight. So, and that's one of the reasons why I got out of comic books, because you get emotionally invested in a character, and then, you know, 2 months later, they change it. And then 2 months later, they change that. And then 2 months later, they change that. And then they put the character with another team. And the character is not the character that you remember from their comic book. They would do that with the Flash. They would do that with the Flash sometimes. Like the Flash is a strong character in his own comic book. But then when you team him up with the Justice League, he becomes a comic relief. And I never agreed with that. Sometimes I watch other tour reviewers, not of what I'm doing, but of other things. And one of the biggest problems I always have is that they don't always give context to the characters that they're talking about. Sometimes based off of how the character is in the media that they're in, that will sway me one way or the other emotionally into buying a character. If I feel like a character is just like a cool character, I will buy that character sometimes based off of that. Really, I don't really have too many buyer's remorse incidents just because I buy the characters that I like rather than the characters that are popular. So it keeps my collection kind of slim. But as I said, you know, we do these tour reviews of just characters that we like, characters that we enjoy, and then you watch the videos back, and then there's no context as to who this guy is, and that bugs me because I'm like, well, tell me something about the character. Tell me something about the character. You know, you have some reviewers that make these weird, obscure inside joke references that only like they understand, and like us as the audience don't. So I'm making a recommendation. Like, how can you make recommendations for something that you've explained to the viewer nothing about? Like, oh, pick up this toy. Why? I don't know. Because of crazy insider reference jokes that nobody else gets but me and my friends on my podcast. I just don't agree with it. It's like, you're here to review the toy, at least talk about the character. Because every toy, every toy character like this one, there is a backstory. There is some sort of comic book or TV show or something that they came from. Even if it's just a minute of you explaining to me, the audience, who this person is. Whether they're a good guy or they're a bad guy, whether they're indifferent, whether they're an anti-hero, whatever they're whatever. Don't just assume that we know who this person is just because you're here. Just because you're here watching a review, you must know who it is. That's not necessarily true. There are some toy reviewers that I watch that I really enjoy their tour reviews because I enjoy not only the content that they're putting on display, but them as people. But the only reason, you know, why I'm saying that now is because it's just something that always bothered me, and I don't want to be that kind of like toy reviewer that's just like, hey, buy this guy. Why? I don't know. But anyway, before we go any further, I'm trying to keep this under 10 minutes. Excuse me, which I'm probably not going to be able to do. But let's get into the articulation. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Okay, so she has a arm that goes around 360. Bicep swivel. Elbow joint. Has a forearm. Not a forearm. She has a swivel at the wrist. Same thing on the other side. Bicep swivel, single elbow joint. Same thing on the wrist. This is swivel. She does have a swivel on the waist, an abdominal hinge. Get you about up to that. Get you about forward that much. Get you back about that. Well, her cape is in the way, obviously. She does have her head's on a ball hinge. I will get to like the head in a minute, but it does go around 360, so you can clearly see. You got the hair here. Moving down the leg goes up about that far. Goes back about that far because once again, you got the like butt hinge or a butt flap. The abdominal. That prevents it from going all the way back. Put her arm down. She has a thigh swivel on the lower thigh, which is really kind of weird looking because it breaks up the continuity of her leg. I don't know, maybe I would have put it like up higher. Or maybe just not have it. Maybe have like a ball hinge type of deal here. I mean, I like this. I like the way this looks, but then it just, like, it breaks it up. And then when you twist it around, you see that? You twist it around, it breaks up the continuity. Just a smidge. She does have a single jointed knee on both sides. She does have a okay. So here's the thing: she has a swivel here, and she has a swivel at the boot. So the boot does twist. She has a single hinge on her foot that gets her about that much. Goes back about that far, which is really nice for the appearance of flight, which is really good. Now, quickly going back to the head. Okay, I think the lines on, I think the eyes are a very nice shade of blue. And let me see if I can get this to focus. I think the eyes are a very nice shade of blue. I think the makeup is done well. The face is, I think it almost looks like a matte type of paint. Like I said, I don't know anything about paint, but with my limited experience, it looks like a matte. The plastic doesn't look shiny, which is really nice because it looks a little bit more like skin and not so much like plastic. It's I guess that matte sort of finish is done with the chest window here and the leg. Interesting fact about this here. This gaping hole here. The reason why it's like this is, one, because of fan service, I believe, and two, they actually worked this. They worked her chest area here into the storyline, as far as the reason why she always left this spot open was because she was Superman's cousin. She is Superman's cousin, or she was. I don't know what they're doing in comics now, but the idea was she didn't know what symbol to put there because she didn't feel like a part of the L family because she came from another dimension. Her dimension was destroyed. She somehow survived and got folded over into our DC universe with Superman, Supergirl, and all those other characters. So she always just left it open because she didn't have a symbol. She didn't know what to put there. Because she was a Kryptonian, but she didn't feel like a part of Superman's family, much like Supergirl does. So upon this incarnation of her, that is why her chest is open. Going back to the head here. The hair, I mean, the hair is okay. It looks good enough, I suppose. My problem with this is that I feel like the neck is a little too long. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that her head, if we just turn her to the side here, is super smushed. Like, look at her face. Like, it's like super smushed. Super smushed. But there's all this space back here that probably should be like here. And she doesn't have a jawline. So it just looks like... like, she looks good from the front, but then she looks good from the front, but then like you turn her to the side, and she's got no chin line, none, like whatsoever. And because I like Supergirl, because she's my favorite female character from DC, it's not so much a deal breaker, but it might bother you. Her cape is made of this soft plastic on the edges, on the fringes, but it gets a little thicker as the cape goes down. The cape is not removable. You see? The cape is actually stuck to her back, which can cause, well, I don't know if it can cause some balance issues, but yeah, it can, because her feet are kind of small, so you got to finagle her a little bit in order to get her to stay where you want her to. See, so she stands just fine. Stands like a champ. One thing that may be a little bit of a bother is that her fist, like her fist is curved a little bit, which kind of breaks up the continuity of her doing any sort of punching action. Like, from here, it looks fine. But from here, not so much. I wish that her fist was a little bit straighter. But I believe this one is fine. Like, if this one was more like this one, it'd be perfect. Not to say that it's imperfect, am I right? I stole that completely from Bobby Skullface. I do apologize. I admire him very much. But I wish that they would have, I don't know, made this like a floating piece so that way it just hangs off and you can just take it off. So that way, if you want to, you have the option of not having the cape connected to her back. She has this, it's not a chain. This rope, this gold rope here with this pin and shoulder pin. That also is stuck to her character. It's also stuck to the toy. So you can't really do anything about this. But it's okay. I mean, the cape is not too big that it gets in the way. but you know, it's not too small where you don't. It's not too big where it gets in the way. Put it that way. But all in all, you know, I buy characters based off of based off of me liking them and what my level of interest is for that character. So that's sort of how I gauge my DC figures. Sometimes I'll buy them based off of price, and sometimes there are, like I said before, like I've said many times before, there are certain characters that I do go out of my way to get, and Power Girl is one of them. There aren't too many Power Girl figures aside from Bus. Yeah, I know. Low hanging fruit, I know, but that's what they call them. But you know, I got this one on the cheap. I'm happy to have a Power Girl representation. So if you are a Power Girl fan, I'd say she's a buy. Like I said before, there's not too many Power Girl representations other than like a few. And if you can get a good one at a cheap price, then I highly recommend this one. She's affordable, she's articulated, and you know, there you go. What more you want? So until next time, this is the Bay Area's only tour reviewer, Carl, and I will see you next time.